In Parashat Bo, the Torah commands us in the very beginning of Parashat Bo with a very special commandment that we speak about on the holiday of Pesach, but it applies throughout the whole year. למען תספר באוזני בנך ובן בנך את אשר התעללתי במצרים ותוצאותיי ששמתי בם וידעתם כי אני השם. What we call the commandment of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim, retelling the story of Egypt, retelling the miracles that occurred. And when I say that this is a mitzvah that really applies the whole year, because it is important to talk about miracles all the time. Somebody witnessed something, to retell it to others. But here the commandment is especially to retell it to one's children. And the Torah says that after you retell them, Vida'atem ki ani Hashem. In other words, you are also affected by this. What does this all mean? There's an importance in transmitting, giving over the masorah, the tradition, to our children. Right? The various pesukim in the Torah that basically imply that the father has a great responsibility to his children, not only to raise them, to feed them, but to give over them the transmission. That is how the Jewish religion, the Jewish faith has survived, because it has been an unbroken chain. Even though some families have assimilated or have become distant, eventually it catches up with them. There are still teachers, there are rabbis. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu made sure that every generation there will be people who will teach and transmit the Masorah over to future generations. But that's not only the responsibility of rabbis. Teachers have an important role to play, and so do parents. Just that the father is not always at home, and that is where the rabbi or the teacher comes in. This mitzvah of giving over the Masorah, the tradition, includes the telling over the story of Egypt and the various miracles that happen. It is intended to instill encouragement and faith and hope, especially during the Galut, which the Jewish people spend much more time in Galut, in diaspora, than they have living in Israel without the status of the Galut. We spend more years in Galut, subjugated by other nations, other countries outside of Eretz Israel. So the story of the seventh Son, the whole Seder of Pesach actually, is meant to remind us of the past miracles and to reassure us that these miracles will repeat. So it's a very, very important mitzvah. Other than the miracle itself, that we want to retell to our children, by speaking about what happened in the past, by telling it to others, the one who's telling the story, he himself gets encouraged too. It has a special segula. When one tells a story to someone else, he himself gets excited, not only the listeners. So it is Vida'atem ki ani Hashem, by you telling the others the stories and sharing with them the miracles, the experiences that the Jewish faithful has had in the past, you yourself, one himself, becomes encouraged and that these miracles will happen once again. So it accomplishes two things. It gives over the Masoret, tells over the story, gives over information to others, and it offers encouragement and hope, especially at times when people might be distressed and depressed, not knowing what will happen next. And there have been many, many such periods in history. Today we're lucky in some sense that things are calm, but in Eretz Israel things are not as calm. So if anybody needs hope, they need it even more. So Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim is one of those venues that is used not only once a year, but in general throughout the year, to remind us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt and He performed many miracles, and it was not just something incidental, by chance. He performed it. And when we talk about Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim, we do not talk only about the Makot in Egypt. We talk about the whole process of the Geulah, which involves the Jewish people going through the desert for 40 years, being fed, entering all the way until they enter Eretz Israel. And hopefully by talking about this, children will ask questions. That is the whole idea of the Seder of Pesach, involving the children. They should not only listen, but they should participate and ask questions and receive answers. And the more educated the father is, the more prepared he is, the more he can offer to the child. Okay, this is a tremendous booster for Emunah. I'll just finish this point. This mitzvah of Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. It's a booster of Emunah, because Emunah needs to be strengthened from time to time. People become lax, people weaken as a result of their personal experiences of various pressures in life. And we need boosters. And telling over the miracles, whether it's your own personal miracles or whether it's a miracle that affected all of Am Yisrael, is a very significant mitzvah. It accomplishes what it's intended to accomplish, to strengthen the Emunah. Yeah.
you mentioned that what Hashem did in Mitzrayim 3,000 years ago will again occur.
Right.
Miracles will occur.
Miracles will repeat.
We will be brought out of the good.
Right.
Brought to Eretz.
That's correct. Correct.
What happened to the Jews in Mitzrayim was that 80% died. 80% did not get out. Correct.
Right. Many did not make it.
Many did not make it.
Right.
We should not be surprised then that 80% of the Jews now won't make it.
That's correct. Not everybody will make it.
It shouldn't be a surprise. Matter of fact,
yeah.
What the Torah tells us is that that's what we should expect. The number about 80%.
Right. Many will not make it.
Will not make it out at all.
Yeah, I would rather not quote the percentage because Baruch Hashem, we have a lot of Baalei Teshuvah, and Hashem has these. The Kabbalists are saying these days has extended the period of the kids of the final redemption a little bit longer, just to allow more and more people to have the merit to witness the coming of Mashiach.
Maybe there's good reason that 80% shouldn't make it.
No, not necessarily. We do have a tradition.
Because the Torah is teaching us that 80% didn't.
No, that was
everything. There's a reason.
Right.
So
but
we shouldn't expect.
Yeah,
Jews, this assimilation maybe has the purpose of setting up that.
No,
80%
God forbid. No, it doesn't work like that. Because everybody has free will. The percentage of Jews that did not leave Egypt, they did not want to leave Egypt, they did not fully
they don't
believe.
Want to leave America.
Exactly. There are individuals who do not want to leave America, but it could be out of ignorance. There is something now that we didn't have in the past. That's called the Erev Rav, the mixtures that left Egypt. The various nations that joined the bandwagon. They wanted to leave Egypt. They converted. They were bad influence over the Jews. Throughout history, they caused us trouble, and they're around now in a reincarnated fashion. Hashem will remove or filter out. We have those elements.
But they're called Jews anyway.
Those elements, nevertheless, will be filtered out during these times of upheaval, which is a form of choshech, of darkness. And not everybody, therefore, will make it. There will be upheaval. There will be wars and all sorts of problems, and not everybody will make it through. Not everybody will survive these times, and therefore will not make it. So in the kibbutz galiot, in the ingathering of Jews, you have at this time many Jews who are coming to Eretz Israel already, who do not necessarily have any faith, and who maybe do not belong there. There will be a filtering process. That's our tradition. Whether they're here or there, they'll eventually will remove them. On the other hand, we do have a tradition that says Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba. Every Jew who behaved like a Jew, depending on what he did, for the most part, has a share to the world to come. So even though he does not make it right now, it does not mean that he's excluded from Tehiyat HaMetim, from the resurrection. It just means that to be around these days, especially during the very, very last days, and to witness the coming of the Mashiach and the many miracles, you need a zechut, you need a special merit. For that day, or for that year, or that moment, not everybody will be zocheh to see it all and survive unscathed. Did I pronounce it right? Unscathed. Right? People will be affected. Some people will be affected economically, others physically. People will feel the different pressures of the time depending on their level, their madrigah. That is our tradition.
But it only started with Mashiach. What's that before?
It starts a couple of years before. It could have started September 11th. We don't know. We know when the turning point is. Turning point is, according to the most Kabbalists, is World War I, this past century. So how long does that last? We don't know. A basic tradition, based on what the Midrash says, is that this whole process, called the Talich HaGeulah, lasts for 3 generations. So it depends when you start counting, and it depends how long a generation is. Assuming a generation is 20 years, so when you start counting 1948, we're at the end of this, right? So we don't know exact dates, but we know that we're in the midst of this, and that there will be upheavals, and not everybody will make it. So it will resemble in many ways the Geulah of Mitzrayim. Not exactly, but in many ways it will resemble. The next point in Parashat Bo is a Chodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. Torah tells us about the mitzvah of Kiddush, or Birkat Levana, sanctifying the new month by witnessing the new moon, observing the new moon. That is the way we determine when the holidays occur. So establishing a new month, observing the new moon, is something very, very important in Judaism. And that is, the rabbis, of course, were very careful. There were many, many rules on how this needs to happen. It was based on a tremendous science too, of when astronomically this occurs. And the reason I'm saying astronomically is because, as you know, there's something called the solar calendar, something called the lunar calendar. And we don't follow the lunar calendar totally like the Muslims do. We don't follow the solar calendar either. So what do? We have a combination of the two. In other words, the new month is determined by the new moon, but there are adjustments made based on astronomy to reconcile the difference between the lunar year and the solar year. So that is why the Muslims have problems with Ramadan. It could be in the winter, the summer, in the spring, or the fall.
Yeah.
By us, Pesach has to be when? The Chodesh HaAviv. It has to be in the spring. So we need to reconcile. So you have leap years, you have leap months, because the lunar month is 29 and a half days, approximately, right? So you have to add up all the halves.
What do you think?
Right? To eventually all the halves add up. It's under 30, right? So we're behind. So there are adjustments made. All these adjustments, all this work of astronomy that the rabbis talk about, and they talk about at length, is what the Torah says, Ki chochmatchem uvinatchem la'inei ha'amim. This is your wisdom and your knowledge unto the nations, meaning that the nations will see what intelligent people you are just based on your calendar system. Because there's no other calendar system out there that is as accurate as the Jewish calendar. And it's very complex. And they did not use this complex system until after the destruction of the temple. Before that, it had to be based on observation. Witnesses were to observe the new moon. But there were problems with it. There were problems with that system. And the system of figuring out astronomically when the new moon is and when the holidays will be had to be written down for future generations, that there should be no mistakes. Because many things depend on that. Yom Kippur, the correct day for Yom Kippur depends on this. We can't make any mistakes. We're talking about a big diaspora, Jews being all over the place. We can't have one community thinking that the new moon begins today, and well, no, it began yesterday. So there had to be a system put in place, a system, of course, that depends on complex formulas that are based on celestial bodies, in this case, the sun and the moon, and various calculations to figure out which year would be a leap year, when therefore the holidays would occur. This is of great importance. However, if you notice, the Torah calls Nisan the first month, but the calendar changes years in the month of Tishrei. So what is happening over here? So if you look at the words, Nisan is called Chodesh Lachem Rosh Chodashim. All Nisan is the first month of the year. It's the first month actually, but it's not when the new year changes. Our new year is Rosh Hashanah, the month of Tishrei. What's the difference? Nisan represents our day of independence, in a sense, when we're formed into a nation, and therefore Nisan, out of the chashivut, of the importance that we give it for being the month that we left Egypt, it is the first month. We call it the first month. Iyar the second, Sivan the third. That is how the months are numbered till today. But the year changes as of Tishrei. And that, of course, it follows the opinion that the world was created around Tishrei. So that is the first month of the year, in a sense. But it's not called the first month, but that's when the year changed. So that is the difference between Nisan and Tishrei. What's the significance of the moon? Why do we follow the moon? Why can't we just follow the sun? Obviously, these two bodies, these two planets are important. The Kadosh Baruch Hu created the star system, the planets for reasons. They all affect the Earth in some ways. They are, as the Parashat Bereshit, it says, they were intended for various things. Amongst them, Limeorot Barakia, they serve as illuminators of the night. The moon illuminating at night, the sun illuminating the day, the moon illuminating along with the stars. So that's one of their purposes. And also to establish time. They help in that way too. The combination of the two, between the sun, gives us the best, most accurate system. The sun by itself is not accurate, the moon by itself is not. A combination of the two that offers the most accurate system of timing. But there's something a little deeper in this. The moon represents the night. That's why it shines at night. The sun represents the day. What's the difference between day and night? The night represents the galut, the Jewish people. Our olam hazeh, this world that we live in, the Jewish people that are in the diaspora, are compared to the moon at night, because the galut is like the night. Okay, the goyim are compared to the sun, in other words, which lies during the day. They have olam hazeh, we have Olam Haba. So we have much more sever, much more Yisurim. We have Galut and suffering in this world, which is compared to the night.
There's other metaphors.
Obviously, there are other metaphors. So the Hoshech, the night, the darkness is the Galut, and eventually, what will happen? What comes after darkness? Daylight. So our prosperity, or our day, or daylight, will occur in Olam Haba after which it follows the night. That is why the Jewish day begins at night, and it follows by the daylight. But the Goyim is the other way around. First they have daylight, and then they will have night.
So we better off.
Lights out for them.
Lights out for them,
Yeah.
exactly. So that is a little bit of the symbolism
Before
of the
this
moon,
way.
being representative of the Jewish nation, and shining at night, which is representative of the Galut, of the diaspora. Okay, next commandment, or next idea in Parashat Bo is the mitzvah of Korban Pesach. Very unique Korban that the Jewish people are asked to bring, the sacrifice of the lamb for Passover. This mitzvah is a form of Korban Todah. It's a form of sacrifice of thanksgiving, which is a type of Korban that a convert would bring during the time of the Beit HaMikdash. Amongst other things, it's a thanksgiving sacrifice.
So they eat it at home like the Pascal.
Yeah, right, they eat it, but
take it to vitamin.
but it's like a sacrifice, because it has to be slaughtered, properly, with, ritually, right? And it's a form of Korban Todah, and the Jewish people were like Gerim, were like converts when they left Egypt, and they became the Jewish nation. And as a way of thanksgiving for the miracles, for the Exodus, for the Geulah, they brought a Korban Pesach. That is one of the simple explanations. But there's a lot more to it. What Hashem was expecting the Jewish people to do is to completely disassociate themselves from any Avodah Zarah. And the Korban Pesach, in a sense, was a way of showing that we're slaughtering the Avodah Zarah of the Egyptians, which is what they worshipped. Right? And that is why Hashem took us out in the month of Nisan, also, which was representative of their idol that they worshipped, the ram. Taleh, which is the ram.
Oh, I see.
In other words, I'm going to take you out in the month that you worship.
The Zodiac sign.
In other words, nothing will help you, the Egyptians. Not your God, not your mazal or anything. Not only will it not help you, I will tell the Jews to slaughter that idol, and they will barbecue it so that you can all smell it, right? And it was done publicly, just to defeat that Avodah Zarah, to remind the Jew that the true koach of this Geulah does not come from any mazal, comes directly from Borei Olam. So to remove from them any influence of Avodah Zarah, they are being asked to slaughter the Korban Pesach, which is symbolic of the Avodah Zarah of the Egyptians.
Are we going to do that in the future?
What?
When are we going to do that again?
Well, when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, we will have some korbanot as well again. Now, the third explanation of what's the purpose of Korban Pesach is lehodot al hanisim, is to thank for the miracles. What are we thanking for? We're thanking for Asher Pasach al Batei Bnei Israel v'Batenu Yitzil. We're thanking Kadosh Baruch Hu for having skipped the Jewish homes when he went after the Egyptian homes. Makat Bechorot. That is why it's called Pesach. Now, if you look at the Torah, this holiday in the Torah is not called Pesach. What is it called in the Torah? How does the Torah call it? Chag HaMatzot. But we call it Pesach. Why don't we call it Chag HaMatzot, like the Torah calls it? Because the whole idea of Pesach, part of the idea of the Korban Pesach is to thank Allah for the miracles. So what we're doing is Hashem. We are going to call this holiday Al Shem Hanes, by naming it one of the miracles that Hashem skipped over our homes. That is what Pesach comes from. The Hashem Pasach. Al Batei Bnei Yisrael b'Mitzrayim b'Nokvot Mitzrayim et Batenu Yitzil. Hashem spared our homes. So we call this holiday using the name of the miracle that occurred with us. What does Hashem do? I love you, Hashem says, and I will call this holiday on what you did for me. That you took the matzot, you carried it, you didn't wait for it to ferment and to become the dough.
Yeah.
You didn't wait for it to ferment and to become chametz, right? So I'm going to call this holiday Chag HaMatzot, and we call it Pesach. So each one is calling it based on what he relates to and what he is giving thanks for. Next point. This Korban Pesach, I said, is unique in that no goy can participate in eating from it. Not only can't a goy eat from it, a Jew who's not circumcised cannot eat. Or any Jew that has become an apostate. You know what an apostate is? A mumar. In other words, he totally rebelled against Judaism. He cannot participate in this Pesach. Why not? You don't have this mitzvah anywhere else almost. Korban Pesach is special because Korban Pesach is symbolic of freedom, right? That we were liberated from Egypt. Well, why were we liberated? So we can be Avdei Hashem. Ben Chorin, Rabbi tells us, "En lecha ben Chorin ela mi she'oseh b'Torah." A true free Jew, or a true free man in a sense, is only one who is engaged in learning Torah. The Torah is what liberates us. Therefore, one who is not engaged in Torah is not a true Ben Chorin. Even though he's Jewish and learns Torah, but he's not circumcised, that's already a different problem. He's incomplete. It's a problem. Now, you might say, why isn't he circumcising himself?
Yeah.
Well, there are situations where a Jew cannot circumcise himself. You know when? He wants to, but he doesn't. If his brothers died as a result of circumcision, that's the only time a Jew is told that he's exempt from it.
And then, but it's not his fault. Then
Two of his brothers died from not being from the act of circumcision. The halakha says the third boy does not get circumcision, but he still cannot eat the korban pesach, regardless of whether it's fault or it's not. He's incomplete. He's lacking this very important mitzvah, which does what? Makes him Jewish. So the korban pesach, which is to celebrate our freedom, and that we are being formed as a nation, we're becoming B'nai Torah, we're becoming Avdei Hashem, is in contradiction to one who does not have circumcision, or to one who's a rebel, in other words, he's gone away from the Derech HaTorah, or to a complete non-Jew.
Can he go to Sefer Torah? Can he get married?
Of course.
Everything
Is fine.
Get married.
Just the Korban Pesach not. Just the Korban Pesach not. One of the requirements, the prerequisites for eating the Korban Pesach is that you have to be circumcised.
Mhm.
So this is a unique mitzvah, which it really is a connection that we show between ourselves and Hashem and the Torah. Anybody who does not have a connection to the Torah, he's not Jewish, or he has gone away from the Torah, or he's not circumcised, which means that there's something incomplete about his Jewishness, cannot have as part of the Korban Pesach. Okay, another point that stands out in the Parasha is the various food items that we eat on the Seder night, that we would eat Pesach, the maror, the haroset, right?
Yeah.
The various items that we eat. What do they all represent? Different things, right, that happened in Egypt. And they're symbolic. The maror, symbolic of what? That they made our life bitter. Maror is bitter. Haroset is representative of the bricks and the cement, the mortar, right, that they laid. The hard work that they had. What do we do these things for? They're only symbolic. What's the purpose of doing something after so many years? So the Sefer HaChinuch says that many mitzvot, the underlying reason, the reason that many of the mitzvot have very similar reasoning that we do, is because ha'levavot nimshachot achar ha'peulot. In other words, our hearts are influenced by our actions. When we do certain things, it leaves an impression on us, exactly. By preparing the haroset, by eating the maror, by shedding a few tears, right? All of this, even though it's symbolic of something that happened a long time ago, the fact that we do this, that we perform something, performing something leaves an impression. So many mitzvot that instruct us to do something, what they have in common is that by doing whatever it is, it leaves an impression on us. Whether it's a mitzvah that deals with an act of kindness, right? A lot of mitzvot, what they have in common is to teach us or to instill in us kindness and compassion, whether it's for a fellow Jew, whether it's for an employee, right, to pay him on time. It's not only not to be cruel to someone, it's also to learn to be sensitive and aware of other people's problems. So the same way the Sefer HaChinuch says, a lot of these mitzvot, what they have in common is that by performing what we are told to do, it leaves a lasting impression. And that is the idea of this, that it should leave an impression. Something that happened so long ago, how could you relate to it? Tisha B'Av, we sit on the floor, we fast.
You cry.
How could you cry? How could you remember something that happened? Because you do certain things that humble your heart. So it allows you to put yourself in a state of mind that will enable you to reflect a little bit about what is the meaning of this holiday and so forth.
Are you supposed to be happy at Pesach?
Pesach, of course, you're supposed to be very, very happy.
You shed tears then.
What?
But you say you shed tears because you...
No, we don't shed tears on Pesach, on Tisha B'Av, I said.
Yeah.
We have those few items that are symbolic of what happened, but Besides those, we have matzah, we have gefilte fish, and we have good meat and drinks, and we sit comfortable, we're like kings. So we're enjoying ourselves, free men. So it's just to relate. We were once slaves.
Yeah.
And now look at, there were people who used to make a special kiddush at the anniversary of the day when they won the lottery, or when they came out of jail. They were in prison for 10 years by the communists or whatever, and they came out of jail. That every year they took it upon themselves. Or something happened to them, miracle on that day, they took it upon themselves. That day I will make a seudah. A seudah. It's a very good thing, because what the whole idea of this is to give thanksgiving and to recognize, and to have the children recognize what the father witnessed, or what the grandfather witnessed. That is how it leaves an impact on future generations.
When was the Haggadah compiled?
Most of the Siddur, Haggadah, and the various prayers that we have was compiled after the destruction of the temple by a group called Anshe Knesset.
Second time.
After the second temple. Some portions of it were around before, and some later, and some a few generations later. So it was over a period of time that the Haggadah
So the
was
final
compiled.
form that we have now, you would say it's
It's about 1,500 years old.
1500, so about the year 500 AD.
Yeah. That's my estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows exactly. Okay. Next inyan, the next point in Parashat Bo is the commandment of destroying or eliminating chametz from our
Why
possession.
did he say Bo? Bo, come.
Bo el Para'o.
Bo.
Come with me. I'm coming with you.
Oh,
He didn't say
didn't say
go.
go.
He didn't say Bo, meaning
In
I'm
the other
coming.
place he said Lech.
Right. Boy, in a way, I'll be with you. Don't worry. I'm going to come with you. All right. So we have the next issue in Parashat Bo is the prohibition against having chametz in one's possession or eating chametz. There's the Isur, the prohibition of bali ra'eh, bali matzeh, not having in our possession and not eating it. And as you know, the rabbis are very strict with chametz. Chametz asur b'mashu. Even a little bit of chametz is prohibited. What's so bad about chametz? So we first have to understand what does chametz represent. There's an opinion that says chametz represents gava, arrogance. But chametz also is representative in general, is representative of all desires. What's wrong with having desires? We're only human. Pesach is not only a geulat hanefesh, a geulat haguf, where we were physically removed from bondage. The Torah is telling us that Pesach should also be a geulat hanefesh, that the spirit is redeemed from any bondage. How is the spirit enslaved? By ta'avot. People have different desires, and that enslaves them. You're probably more familiar with the word addiction.
Yeah.
Right? Well, an addiction is to be enslaved, whether it's to smoking, whether it's for drugs,
Gambling.
whether it's for women, whether it's for food, whether it's for gambling,
Chocolate.
right? There's many forms of it, right? All of,
Money.
if a
Money.
person cannot control himself, if he cannot control himself, that means he's enslaved. It's a form of slavery. That the Yetzer Hara has control over him. And it shouldn't be like that. Hashem gave us the Yetzer Tov to liberate ourselves, and we can. That is the whole koach, the immense koach that we have called free will. That one can liberate himself if he chooses to. It may be difficult. That is the whole challenge. But we have a tradition that Hashem does not give too much of a burden, or too difficult of a challenge to one who would not be able to deal with it, one that could not tolerate this challenge. If you notice, you look around, people have all sorts of challenges in life. Shelon edav bar minan, there are situations where a couple has a sick child. And when I say sick, I'm not going to say what kind of sickness, because there's all kinds of sickness. Regardless, it requires a tremendous amount of attention and resources, patience, devotion to this child, right? And you wonder to yourself how they're doing. You would never be able to handle something like this. Yeah, that's why you don't have that case. You have something else that you can handle. Hashem gives it only to those who can handle something like this. And we're not getting into the reason why these things happen right now, but the fact is, if somebody has something like this, he can take it. He can deal with it. There are some, unfortunately, who choose to get rid of it.
But it's not a punishment.
Well, I'd rather not speak about the punishments right now, because there's various cheshbonot here. There's a cheshbon for the child himself, and there's a cheshbon for the parents who have this child. Nothing happens randomly, by chance. So there's definitely a reason for this. Nevertheless, they can deal with it. Hashem is therefore telling us, in order for the Jew to succeed in being completely free, being a ben Torah, being a ben Chorin, fulfilling the mitzvot, The best way that he can succeed is if he is liberated also from ta'avot, from the desires. A person that overeats or overdrinks is destroying himself, not only health-wise, spiritually wise. He cannot sit and learn. A person who cares about food, when you eat a heavy meal, you're tired. The person is always eating, he will become fat, and that slows him down. Right? So, all around, overeating is no good and unhealthy. But especially for the mind is affected. He becomes fat, just like the body does. And when a person becomes very comfortable and very fat, the words of the Torah do not enter him. He's interested more in food than he's interested in the shiur of Torah. Because Divrei Torah, words of Torah, is a spiritual food for the neshama. The body does not necessarily enjoy it. On the contrary, it's difficult. It reminds me of a story of how two gentlemen, I think they were wagon drivers. Those days, that was the taxi. You had horses and buggies, and you had somebody who drove it. You remember these days, huh? So they once were sitting around talking and complaining how the rabbi has it so easy. They saw the rabbi coming out of the Bet Midrash. All he does is learn the whole day. They were complaining, here they have to work hard for a living, and he has it so easy. All he does is read and learn. So he overheard their conversation, and he says, you know what? You think it's so easy to sit and learn? How much do you guys make a day? So they told him, $25. I'll pay you to sit and learn for $25, and you come to learn with me the Bet Midrash. Forget about your horse and buggy. Come and sit and learn. Easy. Come. Can you say Tehillim? He said, of course. Can you sit and hear a shiur? He said, of course. So, what do you like the deal? He said, of course, Rabbi, would love it. You pay us every day? Yes, I'll pay you in the morning, even ahead of time, in advance. They said, okay, they're fine. They didn't last more than 3 days, or whatever it was. A very short time. They couldn't take it. They lost their patience. They couldn't just sit a whole day and learn, read Tehillim, pray. They said, Rabbi, it's too difficult for us. You see, it's not easy. You think it's easy to learn, to be Aved Hashem. That's not an easy job. It's a difficult job. What you're doing is easier. It's much easier. Right? People on the outside can never see what it's all about. There is a saying that many Jews, especially Ashkenazi Jews, are used to saying, that it's hard to be a Jew. It's not a very accurate statement, but there's some truth to it. Yeah. The little bit of truth to it is because it requires rigorous schedule. It's organized. Our lives, if we are observant, is pretty organized. We pray 3 times a day. We wash our hands before we eat. We make a blessing before we put food into our mouth. We have a Shabbat. So there's quite a bit of organization, and there is a lot of emphasis on certain things that we need to do, that we do it correctly and right. So there is a little bit of a burden here. It's called all Torah mitzvot, but it's not difficult. Once you get used to it, you feel better. You understand it, you appreciate it, just like anything else. The Torah, if one gets used to it, one sees the beauty of it, eventually it does not become difficult for him. On the contrary, he would love to find more and more time where he could sit and learn. One really derives enjoyment from learning Torah if he does it regularly. Not only does it give him the right hashkafot, the right outlook toward life, it calms his nerves down. As the rabbis tell us, if you have a headache, don't take Tylenol. Sit and learn. Sit and learn. That's the hardest time to learn, is when you have a headache. Torah cures everything. Obviously, what they also meant is somebody has stress, not just a headache. Any problems affecting him, go to the Bet Midrash. You get Sarai is trying to fight you, trying to succumb you, defeat you, pull him into the Bet Midrash. That will neutralize him. One of the reasons I go to Eretz Israel every year, I try, is because I recharge my batteries there, the spiritual batteries. You see the Kedusha, you see the lifestyle of people, the simplicity of how they live. You hear Levayot 4 or 5 times a day in Bnei Brak, in Yerushalayim. You hear cars announcing, the Levayah of this person is at this hour, this place. See, you don't hear this over here. Funerals, yeah. So you really see the real life there, and you see where your forefathers lived, and you see the place, the Bet HaMikdash. You recharge your batteries, your spiritual batteries. It's a tremendous good exposure. So the Torah wants us to liberate ourselves from all these tavot, from all these mundane activities, because that takes you away.
Yom Kippur, then. That's what Yom Kippur is about.
Yom Kippur is only once a year.
Only a year.
Right.
But the liberation of your desires is accomplished by a fast.
That's true. It's
that way you can focus on what your.
That's true. That's part of the intent.
Like indulging in a meal, how do you liberate yourself from physical desires?
No. We're talking about chametz right now. We're talking about chametz, not the meal of Pesach. The idea of chametz, to liberate yourself from these ta'avot. It's symbolic. What is matzah? Matzah does not grow, right? It's a very flat and simple bread. It's not a rich bread. It's a poor man's bread. So it's intended, along with the other ideas of lechem oni, the shachlo v'tem nisan, they ate in Egypt, along with all these other ideas, to liberate us, to remind us that a true geulah is geulat ha-nefesh, not only geulat ha-guf, because one depends on the other. For one to truly be a free man, and to be engaged in Torah and mitzvot, to be observant, one cannot be enslaved by his desires. Just like there is a geulat ha-klal for the entire Jewish people, there's also geulat ha-prat, an individual geulah. Kadosh Baruch Hu redeems individual people from their own sarot, from their own predicaments, from their own terrible situations that they may be in. They also have geulot, right? Hashem performs miracles to individuals too, not only to the Jewish nation as a whole. So there's various types of geulot. The geulah that the Torah is reminding us with the prohibition of hametz is a very important geulah that applies at all times. That is for man to control his desires. And the desires that everybody has, of course, stems from the Yetzer Hara. What is the purpose of the Yetzer Hara? That one rebel against the Creator, against his master. He wants to make you free altogether, but in reality you're not becoming free, you're becoming his slave. His Eved instead of Hashem's Eved.
This I will be killed one day.
Yeah, when Mashiach comes, it's totally removed.
No more.
Yeah, exactly. So Pesach is a liberation of the body and a liberation of the soul. Alright, the last mitzvah in Parashat Bo, another special mitzvah of tefillin. What is tefillin? So you would have noticed, most likely, that the one shel yad and the one shel rosh, the hand and the heads, the tefillin that we put on the head or hand are different. They're not the same. In what way are they different? The one in the head has 4 compartments inside. In each compartment there is a Parasha in the Torah. Okay? In the hand, all the 4 Parshiot that are to be written are in one parchment, therefore there's only one compartment.
The same Parashot?
All 4 are all in one parchment written, and they're all put in one, there's only one compartment. And that square, box, called tefillin. Whereas in the head, you will notice that there are 4 compartments. And each compartment has its own parasha. In other words, they're separate. They're not only one parchment. We have 4 parchments.
But they're the same.
The same ones that appear in the hand. In the hand they appear in one, here they appear individual parashah. So obviously there's always more than one reason for the mitzvot, but I'm just going to explain it briefly and simply. What does tefillin represent? The tefillin that we tie our hands and we put the other one on the head is symbolic of the fact that anachnu misha'abedim, we commit our hand and our head, our body and our mind to Borei Olam. What's in the head that's different than in the hand? Altogether, the human being has 5 senses. Yeah. The sense of touch, the sense of smell, hearing, vision, and taste. Okay, these are the 5 senses. How many of the 5 are in the head? 4 of the 5. The touch is in the hand. So the hand has all in one parasha. The head that has 4 of the 5 senses are all in the head. The vision, the smell, the hearing, and the taste. The 4 are in the head. So there is 4 compartments representing the 4 hushim, the 4 senses that appear in the head. So we are committing all the 5 senses to Avodat HaBoreh.
Moshe Rabbeinu got the idea how to make it.
All of this is Halakha Moshe Sinai. The Torah gives us the mitzvot, it does not give us the details of how to make it. Right. To make it from leather, to make it square, to make it black, to make it with 2 straps, to make it with the shin. And if you see the shin, on one side has 4 heads.
Yeah, one had 3, one has 4.
Not 3, right?
But no, one side had 3, one had 4.
Exactly, yeah. All of these details is Halakha Moshe Sinai. But it's not even, see, there is something called Torah Shebichtav, something called Torah Shebal Peh. All the details. A lot of the details the Chachamim later in the Gemara elaborate on. But we also have something called Halakha Moshe Sinai. Moshe was told to do these things. It was given to him in Sinai. It's almost like a commandment, but it was not specifically or clearly written in the Torah. And all of this was handed down generation after generation. How do we know that etrog is the etrog? Maybe it's a different fruit. Etrog. It's not a common fruit. It had to be that we have seen it all along, that this was the fruit. So we knew that this was by Masorah, by tradition, this was the fruit, yeah.
What's written in each parasha to the 5 times?
I don't know if it corresponds, but you have the Parasha of Shema, you have the Parasha of Vayaki Shamoah, you have the Parasha of Kadesh Li, Vayaki Yeviacha. Yeah. These are the 4 Parashiyot. So in the head, it's individual compartments, and in the hand, it's all in one.
Like this was actually.
No, in Mezuzah, you don't have all the 4 Parashiyot. You have just the Shema.
Only Shema.
Only Shema.
First paragraph.
No, you have the first paragraph and the second paragraph.
Mezuzah?
Mezuzah. Right. Yeah, Mezuzah is different.
Are they from the different books?
Yeah, not in all 5. No. Nevertheless, these are important parashiyot because they contain the yesodot, the fundamentals of our emunah, which a Jew is continuously reminded of when he kisses the mezuzah, when he puts it on his hand. But by making the knots, by putting it close to his heart, which the hand is, by the way, on, especially if you're a righty and not a lefty, it's symbolic of all these things, that you are committing yourself, attaching yourself, and all you do for the sake of Hashem. In other words, Hashem comes first. And this is very important. If a person is asked to sign a contract on Shabbat, you're going to make $1 million commission on this deal. You know, if you just sign it.
Sign.
No, Hashem comes first.
Sign.
No, that's a very big temptation. People are challenged all the time.
Sign.
Right? So a person who's enslaved by his desires will have a difficult time. One who realizes that Hashem comes first, that he has committed himself.
Anything you make on Shabbat, from
there's
my
no beracha,
experience,
right?
anything you make on Shabbat turns bad.
Right, there's no beracha on that.
Turns bad.
Yeah. Anyway, this is one of the most powerful mitzvot, because as I've mentioned before, it applies every day except for Shabbat. You don't find many mitzvot that apply every day. That we make blessings, that's by rabbinic decree. It's not written in the Torah. That we put on a kippah every day, that's also rabbinic.
And tefillin we don't put in Shabbat.
Give me a mitzvah that applies every single day. You won't find that thing.
Why don't you put
The emunah, of course, the faith, the brit milah, you have it, but it was done performed once. But the tefillin is something that is regular and is right away in the morning, and it's every single day, it's constant, because it contains the yisodot, the fundamentals of emunah. These fundamentals are tied to our arms, put on our head, meaning that we commit all our senses, our mind and spirit, to the avodah of Hashem.
So why don't you do it? What's the reason?
Because Shabbat is an oath in itself. The tefillin are considered an oath, a sign or covenant like between us and God. So is Shabbat. So one who observes Shabbat doesn't need tefillin because it's a covenant and a sign in itself. A Jew always needs 2 covenants, 2 otot, 2 signs that he's Jewish at all times. David HaMelech felt terrible when he was in the shower, in the bath. Why? Because he couldn't put on tefillin. But he reminded himself that he had the Brit Milah. So at least he has something. So we always have 2. During the week, we have the Brit Milah and the tefillin, and on Shabbat, we have the Shabbat and the Brit Milah. So, Baruch Hashem, that throughout history, the Jewish people have never given up Brit Milah. There has always been a link between Hashem and the Jewish people, even the most secular ones. So that is a tremendous zechut that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should look upon, and this zechut that Brit Milah, He will redeem all of us.
Amen, amen.
Everybody should have this zechut at least just because of the Brit Milah. So this is the one mitzvah that they always do b'simcha. They've always done it b'simcha, and that is why that has lasted so long.
We last forever.
And we've given our lives for it.
Can we assume that the fact of the mentioning of tefillin at this point means that the Jews started putting on tefillin at this point?
Yeah, this is when they start
They
putting
started
on
putting
tefillin.
it on,
Right,
so-
as soon as they left Egypt, that is when they started making them out of the hides.
I see.
Sure. Right. Because certain mitzvot only applied as soon as they entered the land of Israel.
Yeah.
Certain mitzvot they started getting right away as they left Egypt. But the bulk, the vast majority, they received after Matan Torah.
They got the Shabbat
After they
too.
received the Torah. Exactly.
Yeah.
They got the Shabbat. They got a little bit, bits and pieces, up until Matan Torah. Once Matan Torah arrived, you got all the mitzvot, which the majority of them applied, but not all. They still had the Bet HaMikdash. They still had the mitzvot atluyot ba'aretz, the commandments that apply to the land of Israel. Those they received when they entered Israel.